Welcome to Roots and Ruminants, your podcast for creative and innovative use of farm, pasture, and rangeland. We're going back to the basics of raising and grazing livestock, growing your own forage, and practical land use. We'd like to welcome everybody to another edition of Roots and Ruminant Podcast. We're joined today with Reed Feller. Reed Feller lives in Blunt, South Dakota, and it's going to be a great conversation, right, Justin?
It sure is. This is our first grower relations person that we've had on the podcast. So we're going to learn what that is, right, Reed?
That's right.
Yeah, Reed actually works with us at Millborn Seeds here. And his role is grower relations. And so that does encompass everything on the production side of our team as far as procuring the seed and putting in fields. But Reed's background is really interesting, I think, and that's why he's going to be a guest on this podcast. So can you just kind of lay the groundwork as far as growing up in Blunt and the farming operation out there and kind of what you do just on a personal basis right now?
And you can be very blunt with your answers.
Yeah.
Ha.
Nice job there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
We could do that 3 times today, Jared. That's one, all right? We got 2 more, then it's enough.
Yeah, so grew up on a farm and ranch just south of Blunt, which is east of Pierre. Just nice little farm and ranch there. Dad always grew up raising cows and heifers and yearlings and whatnot. I didn't have too much interest on the cattle side, but grew up showing pigs and sheep and the whole 4-H deal and whatnot. And I kind of gravitated more towards the farming side of things. My dad didn't care too much on the farming side, and he liked the cows, and I liked the farming a little bit more. So graduated from Sully Buttes and then went to SDSU for agronomy degree. Went and got my agronomy degree at SDSU. Been kind of in the farming, ranching type of aspect, I guess, since I was little. Worked on a lot of little operations, bigger operations, through high school, and then took a few internships, and kind of come full circle. Worked for Syngenta there for a number of years, and then been with Millborn for 3.5 or so. It's been great.
So on the farm ranch there, you guys are right at or just west of the 100th meridian. I know we've talked about that before, but the world kind of changes from a farming standpoint in North America at that point. So when you say farming, it does not mean corn and soybeans in a strict rotation, right?
Yes. So I guess when I was in high school and stuff, it was mostly wheat. I mean, it was wheat, sunflowers, a little bit of corn. A lot of spring wheat, a lot of winter wheat, predominantly winter wheat. And that has kind of switched here recently, as more corn and beans have been pushing farther and farther west. And so predominantly wheat, a lot more specialty type stuff too, some milo, some millet, a lot of feed out there as well. We're probably half farm ground, half pasture, and so Dad leases the ground out and, has a 5-6 crop rotation out there, and that's what a lot of the individuals kind of have for a rotation. With Dwayne Beck and Dakota Lakes Research Farm, just down the road from us, a lot of people have adapted strictly no-till. I bet you Hughes County, Sully County's got to be in the 90+% no-till. So been no-till, and that's all I've kind of really known. I got to sit on a 40-20, I guess, for a number of years when I was really little, disking up a few fields, but then since then it's been no-till for 25 years or so. So
it takes a long time to disc a field with a 40-20, doesn't it?
Yes. Yep. Seemed like about 60, 70 acres done in a day was about max you could get done. So
I would quit that too. That's a pretty fragile environment. I mean, not only because you don't get a whole lot of rain, but even like your soil types are just a little bit more. It's light soils or it's heavy clay soils, and so you mentioned Dwayne Beck, and then you mentioned the diversity of your crop rotations, and really that's probably like a nice little segue to what you do now too. But like, is it because of how you grew up that gave you this interest in all these other crops, or was it that introduction, or was it part of going to college at SDSU, being introduced to that stuff, or how did you get to where you are right now as far as the knowledge of all these vast crops that you're starting to manage?
Yeah, I would say I always had an interest in other crops. I mean, you go through the pastures and you see the wildflowers and you see the different types of grasses and stuff, and I really didn't know much on those until I went to college. So I was on the South Dakota crop or the SDSU crop judging team there for a couple of years, and so I got to travel and do competition that way, and really got to learn all the different types of seed sizes, and that's kind of what really opened up of my knowledge or my interest on all there is to learn, and that's kind of what sparked that, was really kind of the crops judging. So there is definitely, like you said, there's a lot of different soil types, and I mean you've got a lot of very heavy clay, the shale. As soon as you start pushing west, where we're in a lot of silt loam type areas, a lot of rock. Did a lot of rock picking growing up and stuff like that. But then you dive off and get towards the river, farm some acres along the river and stuff, and it's a lot more of that heavier gumbo type clay ground, and so I got to work with a lot of variation when it comes to cropping practices, and it fits really well, I guess, in my role because I cover a lot of different states and farm on a lot of different types of ground and different types of organic matter and deficiencies and everything else that comes with growing from Minnesota to Montana, Nebraska, Canada. So it's helped.
So that is the scope of where you are working today with farmers?
No, I mean we've contracted. Yeah, last year we had contracts in Canada down to Texas. So it's really dependent on where the certain type of crop will grow the best.
Sure.
If you dive in on the natives or the perennial side of things, there's certain species that will only grow clear down south. There's certain cultivars, call big blue stem, can't go very far north before it runs out of its photo period. And so you gotta make sure you place the crop on the right acres, and that's kind of what we try to pride ourselves on, is getting it, getting some of these crops in the right geography.
Yeah.
Maybe we should back up just a couple steps, and I want you to really kind of walk through what this role that you have now looked like 3.5 years ago when you started, as just like kind of this field man getting going, trying to understand crops and the need, and then the building through processing facilities and finding different locations and farmers across the country that you're now. Can you kind of walk through that timeline of how this has evolved to where you are? Like now you're this modern day Millborn field man that has this big team and it's really robust and it's a beast.
Yeah.
Talk
Yep.
through that, I guess.
Yeah, we've definitely come a long ways. When I first started, Walker was doing some of the contracts, and we'd pick up some rye here and there and contract with producers, but on a very small acre basis. There was quarter here, 2 quarters there, and we need a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and a lot more outsourcing, which we still do, but for the most part, if we can grow it local or within this logistic geography that we can pull from, we're going to try to. And so that's kind of how it first started out. And I learned a lot from Walker because he was an agronomy degree as well, and he taught me a lot when it comes to how to harvest, how to fertilize, how to get this crop from start to finish, whether it's rye or flax or millet or peas or oats or camelina or whatever it is. And so I got a lot of knowledge from him. He took very good records and did a lot of reading. But as we expanded on our acres over the years, it was more of like self-learning than anything. And by that, it's more of learn it from whatever I can publication-wise. Whether it's SDSU, NDSU, I mean, any of the publications, any of this old type of information that they used to publish clear back in the day. I mean, there's just not as much buckwheat production as there used to be back in the day. Same with flax. Everybody in dog used to raise flax to the eastern part of the state, and you hear stories from the farmers, and so it was a lot of reading and that type of stuff. But more or less, it's learning from our current producers. And so if there's a geography that grows a lot of flax and have had 50, 70 years of production history, more for grain, maybe it's flipping them into seed side of thing. And so a lot of my knowledge has come from producers. And I tip my hat to those guys because without them, I haven't been able to gain that knowledge over the years.
Yeah.
And Jared, why did we see that dynamic shift? Right, like you talk about flax on the eastern side of the state and more buckwheat in the center part of the state. It went away, now it's back. Why has this happened?
I think we pushed west on most everything as corn and soybeans came in on the things that we still do grow. But the bigger story is, and this is why it's really interesting right now, we've outsourced a lot of that to Canada as a country, haven't we, Reed? I mean, a lot of those things that we used to rate are now very large net import products from Canada. Is that accurate?
Yes, and every year is going to be a little different because with the price of dollar and everything up there in Canada, as that has fluctuated a lot more than, say, our dollar on certain years. There's certain products that they produce that, say, China or Japan or wherever, cancel out on a big contract, or they don't take as much as the country produces. The cost of goods is a lot cheaper. Some years, and there's some years where we're running into this year where on certain products they're so thin or so there's not enough up there that we work hand in hand, I guess. A number of the stuff we have to raise down here too. So.
Well, I think so. Actually, I've got to moderate a panel next week at Dakota Fest with some guests on it and talking about ag policy. And it's almost, this is kind of coming up. But it's like, I mean, the question is like we've basically spent 2 generations in agriculture with the consistent advice. It's probably starting from the 1950s on, which was to specialize in whatever you're good at. Get really good into those areas on a farm level and in a region level, and then just assume that transportation and logistics and country and trade relations are consistent, problem-free, and you can move it around, right? So it just became like there's that Glanbia plant in Sioux Falls, right? That I think all they do is process flax, maybe a few other things. I don't think that there's a flax field within 125 miles of that facility in Sioux Falls, right? That they built is brand new. So it's not like they built it in flax country. They knew it wasn't flax country anymore. It just, the assumption was we're right on I-29. There's rail traffic coming from Canada. We can get all the Canadian flax we want to dump into this thing and make, this ground flax product that people can put in their smoothies. And that might not be the reality going forward as we look to not just the U.S., but lots of other countries into more populist America first or Canada first or whatever it may be, protectionist type views on encouraging domestic production and consumption. So it could change to some degree because that has been really easy to move things back and forth across that border. And like you talked about currency exchange rates, as the dollar has maintained such incredible strength across the globe, it makes it cheap for us to import other things. Strong currencies make it difficult to export because it is expensive to get their currency into our currency to buy things, but our purchasing power globally is incredible. And so if there's currency fluctuations and or tariffs and or just other sanitary, phytosanitary rules that make things more complicated to move across the border, that does change the dynamic. Then we have to produce things closer to where they're needed versus just assuming that everything is just cheap and easy to move around.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think there is. And, corn is, last time I checked, which was like 2 hours ago, a whopping 306 in Bancroft, South Dakota for a cash bid as of yesterday, after yesterday's report. And so there is going to be an appetite for people to diversify crop rotations. However, like I said, there's going to be, if it comes flooded in from, another source, then it's not a great opportunity. But I think that a lot of things are changing. So we've had 2 generations of that mentality of, first it was we're going to overproduce in this country to help bolster the position that we wanted to be as the #1 global superpower. So we had the entire Cold War era where agriculture was, basically very, very much encouraged, not only for prosperity, but also for geopolitical reasons, to be a massive net exporter of products, of certain products that mattered. And that is, followed by this, kind of this Thomas Friedman wrote a book called The World is Flat, right? So this world is flat, type of paradigm where everything is easy to move around and cheap to move around. And so you don't have to like do things domestically. You can just do a few things that you're good at, trade for other goods across the globe. And I think the next generation, and maybe 2, is different than those last 2 generations. And I think it's going to have profound impacts on agriculture. I think it's going to change the landscape of agriculture as much as anything ever has. So I think that it does look different because of some of those reasons. Now, that's not what we came to talk about in this podcast. We talked about how to grow these things and how to raise them. But I think that there is going to be more of those. You talk about oats, flax, rye. If there was even the ongoing threat of a 25% tariff, let's say it's on for a month, off for a month, or goes on for a year, off for a year, or just kind of keeps coming out there, it is going to make people look for supplies of those things in country from a long-term standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been very interesting because there's some farmers, some rotations and stuff like that no matter what the price is on things. With the downfall of some of these commodities and stuff like that, from rye going clear up to clear down, there's a lot of guys that are still using that in their rotation because there's such a value to it. And that's what I really like to see when it comes to contracting is constant stable production. Going from one area to the next with brand new individuals makes it very difficult to secure consistent supply. And
Sure.
and what I think we provide value and is been very helpful in a crop rotation standpoint is whether it's millet every year, whether they're going to grow it, potentially raise it for seed, and have that in a Western environment, whether that price doubles in a year or 2, they're going to consistently still use it because they want they want the after product. They want the straw, the stuff behind it. No different than the rye. The guys that are still raising rye, the grain is what it is, but I got to use that straw for bed and heifers or whatever it may be throughout the wintertime. And so providing value on the the front end on the grain side of things or seed is really cool to see as the producers kind of keep that in their rotation and make it fit.
And create these value-added products within their system that bolster another part of their operation and diversify. So good question I have for you is so do you see a mixed-use operation, cow-calf operations with farm ground as more likely and more apt to try these diverse crop rotations?
Yes. I would say over the last year or 2, we've had more calls about how to grow, what to grow. You have an appetite to grow this. I mean, getting a call on mung beans and getting a call on, just odd and end crops that really people are opening their eyes to because they want to try something different. The amount of people that have called in and asked, I got to put rye in the rotation this year. I know it's not very good pricing or whatever. We got to try something different. They take, probably the biggest one is, conversion of wheat to rye because they quite frankly, there's years where, the protein's really good and there's no premium. And then the protein's junk and they're going to get docked. And, they find a way to dock on wheat. Western South Dakota, Western North Dakota, and Western Nebraska. That's all you hear about this time is, boy, they docked me this percentage on, because I had 14.5% protein. And it's stuff that, was very consistent back in the day. You had protein, you got a protein premium. You have protein. We don't want protein now this year,
Yeah.
if a certain region grows it. So people are definitely looking out to produce different things. And when you say, value added and stuff like that, it's more of let's dip our toes into a few different crops. Whether it's rye, oats, those are probably the two that are more easy than anything, relatively more easy to rotate into before you get into some of the stuff that requires swathing or requires a lot more management for say. And so you'll see guys a lot more on the rye and oats, and then all of a sudden they're growing flax, and then they're going to grow forage peas, and then they're going to grow winter camelina or something. And so there's been definitely operations that I've worked with, that started out just strict corn and beans, and now they're rye. Next year they had oats. Next year they had some peas, and then they start seeing that the rotation kind of fits, and seeing that corn yields, behind some of those small grains is, a really big part as you push west. I mean, our philosophy, the reason we have spring wheat in the rotation and winter wheat in the rotation is it typically adds 10 to 20 bushel easy, on the corn yields for the next year. And so, that's something that you got to put in your P&L when you break down your crop rotations for the following year as you push into more arid environments. So,
Yeah.
How many annual crops are you contracting?
Annual
How many
crop.
different species on the annual side? I don't want you to count the perennials.
Do you want to talk down varieties as well?
Sir, if you know them. Yeah.
That'll be the follow-up question.
Yeah. So I think there's like 13 different annuals that we grow on a, I wouldn't say large scale, but like, truckloads, type situation. There's obviously smaller ones that you only need 10,000 pounds for the production for the whole year, and so you might raise a few acres of it and then hold on to that production for a couple of years because you don't want to oversupply some of the stuff. But like on oats or winter wheat, there's 4733 and 4303, and you can dive down. And same with the oats side of things. I think we're at like 8 or 9 different types of oats that we're growing. From black oats to Rangers, some of the new SDSU varieties, and scattering them out just depending on our needs. So if you really broke it down, there's probably 40, 50. I'd have to pull up my spreadsheet. So
of those, what is the most off the wall or the most finicky crop to grow on the annual side?
I would say one that I'm really working on trying to figure out a little bit more is the hairy vetch side of things. It works in polycrop type situation with rye, and for some people it's awesome. It's great. I know a good guy out west that grows thousands of acres of it just straight, and that is the high biomass, the high forage production type crops, your forage peas, getting them through to combine has been it's a challenge. When you've got a plant that is bred to grow forage for cows and try to put it in a monoculture type situation, and it just falls over. I mean, between wind, rain, hail, you name it, environmental factors play a big control in how that product yields. And so keeping it consistent is difficult. Like hairy vetch, you can have a winter kill and you can put it in at the end of August. And then you can dormant seed it the next year, and it comes out and you've got really good production. And so the winter hardiness on some of these crops has been difficult. Winter triticale, we've had ups and downs on winter triticale. Some are winter tolerant, some are facultative, non-facultative. And really figuring out their tolerance as you push them north. That's been a struggle on certain years.
Plus,
also,
hairy vetch is a vetch, right? I mean, it just actually not even really tries to be an upright plant all that much, doesn't it? I mean, it can be facultative with a another host plant to keep it upright, but it's more of a ground hugging type plant by nature, right?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. You grow it in rye hairy vetch together. Yeah, you've got your flowers popping out 6 foot above the ground, climbing up those rye plants, searching for that sunlight. And you know, when you grow in a monoculture type situation, it doesn't know what to do. It just crawls and tangles up, and then
on itself.
Yeah, it's. So we've tried a lot of different things over the years. A lot of polycrop type situations. We did that on a number of operations that wanted to, dig into, reducing the amount of nitrogen that's used on a farm. So growing peas and oats together, piola, peas and canola, flax and peas, another one to help some of those peas stand up. And so there's producers that want to explore on some of this stuff to try to get an edge on. Making things a little bit easier come harvest time, or a little bit easier on the pocketbook when it comes to fertilizer, letting that that hairy vetch produce the nitrogen that it needs for the rye crop. So
so if I grow peas and canola, or hairy vetch and triticale, explain how that works. What do I do for herbicide, fertility, harvest, cleaning?
Yeah, so we write contracts on these mixed type situations, and we typically clean them up in the wintertime because they're a little bit more of a project. Some of them are easier than others, but when you go in a pea and canola, there's certain herbicides that you can actually use over top. Technically you don't have a grass species in there, so you do have some broadleaf herbicides that you can put down as a pre and or post. But when you say peas and oats, you got nothing. You got no herbicides. So you better start with a darn clean field. And so if you don't, then all of a sudden your pennycress is coming and everything else. And so starting with a clean, weed-free bed is your best option when you're doing a polycrop type situation. So, it is very difficult when it comes to combining, harvesting, cleaning, all these crops. But as our cleaning facilities have gained knowledge over the years, as we've acquired a couple different locations, and we've got really good cleaners at certain situations, or at our cleaning plants, they've dove in and seen a lot of crops. That's one thing that you got to tip your hat to these cleaners is they're not just cleaning one crop all year long. They're not a soybean processor. They're not seeing soybeans every day. Like they'll see a forage oat, and the next day they'll see rye, so they see a lot of crops, and so they've got to really it's an art to cleaning things, and I will always stand on that. I mean you can't just stick somebody in there. Like it's an art to figure that all out between the densities and flowable pattern. It's tough, but they found a way to clean a lot of these things, and with newer technology and color sorters, cleaning black seeds out of white seeds and that type of stuff has made our job a little bit easier on that front. So
one of the most popular questions I get with growing small grains is how the certification process works and what are the ramifications of what you do with it. So can you walk through like planting registered seed stock, getting it certified, if you can sell that, all those stipulations?
Yeah. So the seed laws is definitely one that it took me a couple of years to really kind of hound in, because every state's a little different. And when you're doing a certification in Wyoming and a certification in South Dakota and Nebraska and North Dakota and Montana and Minnesota and Iowa, and every place has their own way of certifying. Some of it's digital, some of it's, you got to send in your papers and field inspection reports. And so, ultimately, if you're not growing a product that is 20 plus years old or doesn't have a PVP attached to it, a patent, Yeah, so you can't you got to start with registered or foundation seed.
Okay.
Oats is
Yep.
one that's a little difficult because they technically don't have a registered sale class. Otherwise, everything else kind of goes from certified, registered, foundation, breeders, seed. And so we do have some products that we start with breeder seed and go to foundation. And then, so if you're going to look at like the classes, you come from like the greenhouse down to you take like from the greenhouse down to breeder seed, and then from breeder seed you go to foundation, and then from foundation you go to registered, and registered to certified, and then certified to common. And so like the old Jerry Oats, those are a variety that been around a long time and a lot of people like. Those you don't have to have a certified class. They're really, if somebody knew where there's registered seed stock of that, they were going to be very, very old. If you see what I'm saying, because they haven't been produced for certification for a number of years. But SJSU does a great job on producing new oat varieties. It seems like every year. So there's some momentum and Titans and stuff like that have just come out. Well, you have to start with foundation, or you have to start out with a higher class. On our side of things on contracting, we cover all of that. We take care of everything when we have a producer grow a certified type class of seed. And so we provide them with the seed, and we make sure the inspection's done, make sure our certification is clear through with the state and or states, and the crop improvement in some states are crop improvement, and some of them are like they're almost college based. There's certain states that aren't quite technically a crop improvement.
Are they all land grant based? All
I,
crop improvement tied to a land grant university?
Jared, I don't know if you know that answer, but I don't know.
I think many of them are kind of separate associations, and almost more like Department of Ag, State Department of Ag, kind of run to some degree. So I think it does vary on the enforcement and the licensing and that kind of stuff. But I'm sure there's some universities that maybe that's as far as you go east, if it's less of a priority, it's less relevant. Maybe that's been relegated just back to the land grant because it's got a limited scope. But
yeah,
it's interesting. It's tricky, right? And I'm guessing it's tricky to even find out, like sometimes, like exactly what the rules are on this, or where does this product fall, because it just it's not widely known.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain varieties of oats. I've got a spreadsheet that is like 45 pages of like all the different oat varieties that have had a PVP or Title V or whatever. All those different types of certifications, and there's some that were once started at the college, and it was like a slow release launch or something, and they just pulled a patent from them, and you could still use them for seed, and that was back in the day and stuff. But finding out whether you can technically save something back for your own use, it can be very difficult, especially if you don't know the variety name. You have to do a DNA test, and that's what we like to do on a lot of our products that we are outsourcing. Is we just get a good DNA test. We check if it's Jerry Oat or Momentum or Goliath or whatever it may be. Make sure that we're not doing anything wrongfully. Making sure that we're truly buying DNA tested Jerry Oats. So,
So if I let's go through like the rules and then the royalty structure too. If I buy certified Goliath oats and I harvest those, I can replant them on my land, but I cannot sell them, right?
correct.
But if I planted registered or let's say a foundation, I planted foundation seed of Goliath oats, harvested them. Now, if I would like to sell those as certified because I went through the certification process, how does that royalty piece of that work with the college?
Yes. So you have to report sales.
Okay.
You have to report sales on everything outgoing from that, from that lot. And there's certain amounts So say you've got 10,000 bushel of one type of lot. Well, you have to have another lot once you get over 12,000 or whatever. Each state's a little different, but there's some that if you have 50,000 bushel of Goliath oats, you have to have 3 separate lots. And then when you sell those, you have to have recordings of that, so the state or college, receives their royalty. Breeders get that.
Sure. Jared, has anybody tried this on the livestock side of things?
That's the kind of the reason of the cert fees, right? From in purebred standpoint, right? Like buying the certificates.
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
So
yeah.
it's very similar to that, to say, hey, you can buy 200 straws of semen. Anybody can buy 200 straws of semen. It's $25 a straw. Use it however you want. Now, if you are a registered Angus breeder and it's a registered Angus bull with certificate fee, in order for you to register those calves out of my bull, you have to pay those certificates. It could be an extra $50 a head.
Who gets that?
The breeder, the bull owners.
Okay.
Yep, the bull owners get that, and so it creates for a long tail of revenue for those people, like really long. And there's no phase out, right? Like there is on certain time period. So when we would have, and I don't even know how they track everybody down, because I'm assuming some of these people get out of business or whatever they do, but there would be certificates, like when we were doing embryo stuff, for bulls that are 20, 30 years old, right? And they're not even buying them from the breeder anymore. The bull stud doesn't carry them. They're literally using them out of their tank, but they used it on a donor cow to make 7 or 8 progeny that they want to register. They'd be paying certificate fees 30, 40 years after, the bull had died potentially.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Not much, but some. I mean, it's a pretty significant source of revenue for a really high use bull in a purebred operation. That's why some breeds have them and some don't. Red Angus has no certificates, right, Justin? I mean, there's no certificates, and then there's like Maine Anjou. Some would have it, some wouldn't. I remember there'd be like 2 bulls that would have certificates, so you could do it, but most people didn't. It would affect semen sales because Hereford certificates are wildly expensive usually. I mean, are the higher end of it. And so a guy would look at a bull, is like, I want to use that bull, but man, they want $100 for a certificate, so it's a lot of money. Well, so I'm going to use one that maybe I think is very similar. It's got a $40 certificate. That's the best parallel I can think of.
Yeah, for sure it is.
You should get the Katahdin Association to do that.
Well, like here's the. I mean, you either charge less for your semen and add a certificate fee, or vice versa. You jack up your price of your semen, knowing that that's a final sale of it.
Yeah.
And you're just now sharing your genetics. So you've got to have that. And maybe that's the same on the small grains too, right? Like the foundation seed's not really that expensive for what you're getting.
Right.
But
you've got the highest quality lot of seed that you can have. There's some value to that.
Yeah.
Can I go back to semen certificates one more time? It's like a cool parallel to that, because it has changed the way people have marketed semen in the last few years, the combination of IVF technology and whether or not you have certificates. So like Simmental's, I think, a no certificate breed. Maybe there is a couple, but I don't think there's hardly any certificates. So when they would, bull would sell for $100,000, right? You could, and if they wanted to sell semen for $25 or $30, which is norm, in line. If you sell a lot of it, it's great. But if you're a competitive breeder, you could buy 5 straws of semen for $25. You can spend $125 on semen total. And you could take those straws, cut them in half, or use them over multiple donors and fertilize, 8 to 10 donor cows. Those Simmental donors usually produce pretty well. If you get a 50% take on embryos and a 6 embryo average, all of a sudden you're making 70 to 80 progeny out of the $125 of the semen. So now, if you're a small breeder or any kind of size breeder, you've got someone that in one generation can have 60 to 80 progeny out of your one special bull that can go compete with that sire to be the next good son for like no money at all. Mm-hmm. Now, if they had certificates, there'd be at least some substantial revenue coming in from that extra use because they all have to get registered. But if there's no certificates, so that's why when some of those bulls come out the first year, they'll be like, I want $1,000 a straw. Everybody's like, that's ridiculous. And they're going, that's nothing. It's a $100,000 bull, and you want a $100 entry fee to use him. It's not enough money. So that some of those really high end bulls that have a specific breeder interest get marketed differently because they're trying to at least pay some admission fee to the party,
Yep.
and they look more like stallion stud fee type things than they do for that.
Sure.
So horses
Yeah.
the same way. So you can get frozen semen on a horse. They'll send you a bunch of straws. It doesn't matter. But then if you want to register that with the Quarter Horse Association, then you pay the stud fee for what
Yep.
you get on the ground.
That makes sense. You
Okay,
have
sorry.
compensate for that.
Back to grains. Back to grains.
That's the right parallel, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the registerable certification process. I want to go into things that Reed Feller has done on his own farm, either part of the farm, the business, or the hobby, because you do a lot of seed collection and off the wall things, the little seed cleaning on the side. Can you give us some of the cool things that you've done there?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of oddball type situations on the farm. I'm blessed to be raised on a farm that's very diversified. South of Blunt doesn't sound like a very big, diversified type operation, but grew up there. My dad, between my mom and dad, they planted a lot of trees. There was basically one tree in Blunt when Blunt got started. And you go south, we've planted hundreds of thousands of trees across the operation, and so we've got a lot of windbreaks, shelter belts, and stuff like that. And so we've introduced a lot of trees on the operation. Well, what has that done? That has opened up pheasant hunting, a lot of habitat, a lot of deer, and so we've kind of grown into pheasant operation side of things. Got a lodge and taking hunters, all fall, and do a lot of self-guided type hunts there. And with the canyon or the Medicine Creek back there, you've got a lot of water. Well, that opens it up to a lot more different types of species when it comes to wetland. So a lot more prairie cordgrass and a lot more blue vervain and different types of species that you typically wouldn't see in a western environment. And I remember about 2 years ago now, when I wanted to dive into more learning on the native side. We've got a couple native pastures that Dad rotates cows really, really well, and basically every week or two, my wife would go out and we'd look at the flowers and we'd look at the plants to figure out what types of species we had out there. And so I would have a better knowledge of what it was. And so you do the plant collections and pick your wife a bowl of flowers or whatever in the evening, but you learn. And that one pasture between trees, forbs, flowers, grass, I think there was pushing 90 different species on that 60 acres that I walked that whole summer. And so that's a very diverse pasture. But you see the creek bottom, you got hillsides, you got rocks, you got clay, you got draws, and then you've got the flat up top. And so that's introduced species as well as natives. And so where I'm trying to go with this is there's the place where I grew up kind of opened up my mind to what's all out there. I mean, grew up trapping, the different types of wildlife that's across that piece. I've seen a lot of it. The tree side of things, that kind of opened up to, well, how can you add value on an operation when you got all these trees? Well, add value was, the hunting side of things. Well, now I'm picking plums and picking choke cherries and selling wine and, all those things that he planted 10, 15, 20 years ago, groves of apricots. It's picking those types of things, and hopefully, kids someday continue to add value on that operation. You're probably gonna ask me at some point, but the amount of rattlesnakes that are out in our area, collecting those, selling those, it's.
So were those certified or registered?
Common class.
Common?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So there's no fees that you had to pay on to be able to market those?
Nope, nope
Okay.
fees.
Okay. Just
So
all net profit.
yeah.
No cost of goods. What is the equipment that you have to purchase to be able to do that correctly?
Um, I don't think you have to purchase anything besides maybe your shovel on the back end of your pickup. But
Okay.
no, it's kind of unique. So I ran into I don't know what a snake vertebrae type ologist is. Like snakeologist is what I would call it,
Okay.
but it's not. What?
I don't know. Snakeologist sounds good. So you
You,
ran
you know,
into
somebody
it.
that studies snakes and reptiles and that
Yeah.
type of thing.
Okay.
So there's one of our guides' wife works out in the area, and that's actually what she does. And she is working towards finding. She's working on trying to find antivenom places, and so she's confronted me, and I've sent her off several rattlesnakes already this summer that she's probed and found whether they're females and males, and sent them off to breeders out on the East Coast to actually breed them to get antivenom closer to these western environments. She'd come out to this region because there was not. She's worked in venomous snakes all of her life down south, down in the southeastern part of the U.S. And long story short, she's up here and she does a lot of collections on snakes. And so now she's confronted me on getting her allocation of snakes on a yearly basis to work on venom or to work on antivenom type vaccines or not vaccines, but like preventative type measures farther west. Because if you
Sure.
get bit by a snake out in our country, you would think, oh, you just go to your local hospital. It sounds like you have to get airlifted to Minneapolis.
Really?
There's a couple boys or one kid out here that supposedly got bit by a snake, and maybe it was the time frame of when he got bit that they didn't have antivenom on hand or having it readily available, but they had to airlift him to Minneapolis in order to save him. And so she's working on trying to get antivenom closer to the actual snakes.
Okay.
So catch them, give them to her, and feel like you're providing something of value, I guess, for the
That's
future.
cool.
But
What kind of
So
package do you use? Go ahead, Jared.
dead or alive?
alive.
Yeah.
Oh, gotta be
Yeah.
alive.
Standard UPS overnight in a box in a bag.
Boxed through Delta airline. Supposedly Delta ships them off, but she comes and picks them up at my house. So I just
Okay.
throw them in.
Okay.
I just throw them in the back end of the pickup, and they ride back there, have a quick little ride till they get home, and then I take them out of the back end and throw them in, pail until she comes picks them up. So she's got the little crates, and she waters them and everything else, and keeps them alive, and then she
nice.
she moves them. So a lot of it's by airplane through Delta. I learned that. So.
Do you have a long pinchers that you grab them with, or do you just
I do.
you have a shovel? What's that gonna
Yeah,
do?
I used to have one of those pinch your hand, 4 or 5 footer or whatever, and I'm not sure where it left at. So it's just a shovel, just
Just a shovel.
a spade or stick.
Are you
And,
scooping him, or are you trying to get him to wrap around the stick? Like you put the
They,
stick
they
in the middle,
curl
and try
up.
to
You
get
just shovel
so you go-
underneath and
Okay.
throw them in the back end for the most
Can you
part.
just
Over your
can
you
get
did this. You throw them over your shoulder.
No, not over your shoulder. Like throw it out. in front.
throw it up in the air high, and then you grab the bag, and then you try and catch it when it falls down? Should try that. Might work better.
Have you ever been bit?
Okay.
No, never been bit. Been close.
Close?
But
Okay.
no.
Maybe get a longer spade. Like I feel like a spade has a short handle.
Well, everybody's like, well, you're going to get bit. You're going to get bit. And, it's an adrenaline rush. It really is. And that's probably
I
half
bet.
the battle. It's
I
like,
bet.
it's like you see one, it's like, oh, you could die if you get bit by this thing. So let's
Let's get
mess with
closer
it,
to it.
Yeah,
Let's
I
get the
don't know
spade.
why. But,
A spade.
if you got a 4-footer, I think they can only strike basically half their body length. And so you got a
Okay.
4-footer curled up, it's going to strike 2 foot. And that's
So you can
about as
get-
big as rattlesnakes get that
Yeah.
I've seen. It's about 4 foot. So
Okay.
you can stand awfully close. 2 foot is
Yeah.
yeah.
we have a disclaimer, like a don't try this at home disclaimer on the Ritz and Minute podcast. Like, just, please, if you're listening out there, it's not an endorsement or authorization to start hand collecting snakes.
How many have you collected so far this year? And what do you get normally in a year?
So I got in touch with this gal here probably about a month ago. So I think I've gotten 2 that I've shipped off to her that she's picked up. And then I told my dad about it, and last week he was moving cows and he killed 3. Like last year, in a week's time frame, I killed 6 or 7 on the road. Just traveling between different farms and stuff like that. There's years where you'll find 15, 20, maybe a little bit more than that. And then there's years where you get a bunch of grass. And if you're not around in the spring and the fall, what they do is they come out of the den site and they push east for us. So they actually go east and then have their little ones, and then they migrate back west. And they go to these big den sites. I've never targeted any of the big den sites. I know there's a few around. But they talk about, them all hibernating together, between the bull snakes and rattlesnakes, and having hundreds of them in a den site. But I've kind of left those alone and really don't know too. Yeah, I've just kind of left those alone, and you're going to see them every year. So
That seems smart. Yeah.
Can
you don't want to be
make more-
outnumbered. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to be outnumbered in this process. I don't think.
yeah.
Any dead market? Are they worth anything dead?
Yeah, so there was a guy that always come by our ranch, called him Rattlesnake Daryl. He'd always come by in the fall time, springtime, and I just load up a cooler. I had 10 that I give to that other cow that were just sitting in the freezer. Rattlesnake Daryl got old, and I don't know what he did with them, but he'd just give you $5 a snake that was in the freezer, and shoot, if you had 10, 15, 20 of them that you picked up throughout the year, I don't know, it's a case of beer too. So
Yeah.
Rattlesnake
do you think
Reed sounds better than Rattlesnake Daryl.
Right. Do you think Daryl had an outlet, or he was just collecting them?
Oh, he
Like,
definitely
whoever-
had an outlet.
Okay.
Yeah,
He just doesn't have deep freeze full of them. Like, it's like one of those, guys that just, has a bunch of abandoned cars, around his place,
Yep.
a bunch of junky machinery, and then, he passes away as a bachelor, and somebody has to clean out his house, and there's just freezers full of snakes.
Yeah, no, him and his wife would come out, and then they would drive through the pastures with their
All
diesel truck and look for him. And he got so old he couldn't see him, so his wife was picking him out, but he was driving. And so she would pick him out, and then he would get out, and she'd point him in the right direction where to go and get him. And so that was about 2 years ago. So,
okay.
And he
Very
has done that, I think, all his life, because he talks about, going to those den sites and pulling out 100, 200 type snakes, in the fall time.
Okay.
And so he obviously had an outlet for them, and
Okay.
I'm sure he had hundreds of stories to tell about snakes.
Well, Daryl, if you're a listener to the Ritz Minute podcast, we'd like to invite you to reach out to us to be a guest in the near future. Okay, well, that's an interesting aside. Anything else? Do you do anything with salamanders, toads, any others, or is it just mostly the snakes?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
Not yet.
Not yet.
yet is the right answer. Not yet.
That's right. There might be a market somewhere, so.
Yeah.
But choke cherries.
Wow.
Yeah, pick a lot of
You're making
choke cherries.
wine.
Yeah, my mom and dad like to make their own type of wine and stuff like that with the choke cherries, and I ship off 25 gallons of choke cherries off to a winery every year. And I don't know if you guys haven't seen it on the eastern part, but the fruit this year has just been like in the shelter belts. I don't know if it was typically you get a frost early and you don't have any sort of apricots, and we've got these old apricot groves that are 30 plus years old, and typically apricots are done fruiting 20, 25 years. They kind of toast
Capped
out.
out.
And they were just loaded this year.
Huh.
And we haven't had apricots on those trees for 3 or 4 years, so it must have been a good fruit year for things. And
I tried planting apricots. I'm not sure. I'm going to be a few more years before I can know if they worked or not. But it's really dicey for me. Like where you live, Reed, it's like basically straight west, but is a much milder climate. right? I think than where I live. I think you can handle some trees. You're probably in a different climate zone, tree zone.
Yeah, like we've experimented. I grow some cherry trees,
Okay.
ball cherry. Pick a couple bowls out of those couple trees that we get every year. Apple, apricot, pear. Got all those types of trees. So feed the kid. So
Yeah. Cool.
Our
That
tree,
sounds
our
great.
our fruit trees barely made fruit this year. Like we might have a few apples. We had some cherries. Last year we had great peaches, and this year we don't have any. And zero plums.
that's one. I've never gotten a peach tree to go.
Yeah,
My
they look good too. I think they're gonna
my
make
dad
it.
talks about he had one when he grew up was a peach tree. I said, "How did you get a peach tree to grow? You just live south of Harold, like that's even more deserted than I think where we live now." But he said that peach tree was right next to the house, and that house was so old that it provided heat through the ground and through the straw bales that were
Yeah.
holding up the siding on the side, all winter long. And he said, we had production on it, but there was that heat layer that was coming off that house that, you know, was probably more of a southern type variety that made it live throughout the wintertime. So
Sure. Yeah.
Wild. So talking about small grain, I had planted some Goliaths this year, and I was going to hay them, maybe chop them, but probably just hay them. And this has not been a great summer for haying. Not a lot of good windows. I've had 20 plus inches of rain, probably 23 or 24 inches of rain since like the 1st of April, like a wild amount of rain. So you can about imagine, and I fertilized them too a little bit of nitrogen, not much. So my Goliaths with fertilizer, and then that kind of moisture and summer, they got pretty lodgy, right? Like, well, because they should have been combined like 2 weeks ago, and then you couldn't do it because it was raining all the time. So then they would lodge, and they would rain 2 more inches, and then would get lodged more. And I got to tell you, Reed, like last week Thursday, I was pretty sour on the small grain experience. I was like, ugh. But then I was like, this happens. This happens in soybean harvest too, right? Where you just get rained out for 3 weeks and you're mudding out there and everything like that. So we got them taken off on Friday afternoon. Went slow, but took them straight. So no other monkeying around. And there was some shelled out. There was some, laying flat on the ground, whatever. They still made 116. Like it wasn't
100
bad.
what?
116.
wow,
They yielded
that's good.
116 in like the most miserable condition you can imagine. And I literally thought like I'm just going to hay bind this and just put up some straw with a little bit of oats in it, right, at this point. Obviously, straw yield's good Goliath, a lot of stock out there, so straw yield's going to be good. And now I'm back to pretty excited again about doing more small grain next year. So, but it can make you have feelings, when things aren't going good, especially when you're doing something new, because it gives something for a lot of people to talk about. And there's a lot of oats in our country, so it's not unique, but it's middle of summer, and there's really nothing else to talk about except for whether or not you should put fungicide in your corn and how people's oats are doing. This is about it, right? It's just a slow time of year for rural news in the township, and so we all get to look at each other's fields and see. So it feels like a very visible, very vulnerable thing to raise a small grain that could have lodging issues and things like that, but it worked out really good. And the oats price in Bancroft, my local market, I can take oats 5 days a week to Bancroft, which is 4.5 miles away, right? So it's as handy and as convenient as you can get. That is the only thing you can do in Bancroft, by the way, is sell oats, corn, or soybeans. That is the only thing that you can do there. There used to be a pop machine on Main Street, but I think it froze up too many times in the wintertime. People get frozen cans, so they kind of stopped doing that. There used to be a couple churches, but I think they're mostly closed. Maybe one's still open. Anyway, but you can sell oats there. So $3 for oats, $3.06 for corn today. That is the tightest spread between corn and oats that I can remember, although I haven't followed it that close. Right?
Wow.
It's a pretty tight spread.
That is.
Especially since you're like, for pounds, like you're selling half the weight in a bushel of oats. No, a little more, but like 60% of the weight in a bushel of oats as you are corn. So it's not like it's pound for pound the same. Like oats are technically almost worth twice as much on a pound basis. as corn.
Yeah.
Which is strange because that's a lot of got to be going into a feed market. I mean, how do you maintain outside of like horse feed and stuff? How do you maintain oats competitive as a feed with corn that cheap? Any insight there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I know there's a lot of tight markets where they all go to and stuff like that. I'm very uncertain on, but yeah, it's kind of hard to compete.
Yeah.
With prices being that close.
Yeah. So we're gonna have there's a lot of oats in this country. There's gonna be a lot more next year. I got 3 neighbors within 10 miles of me that have swathers if I need one. If I need to pick up heads. If I need to come in an emergency, can get a custom crew to take them out if need be, and I kind of like it. So
Yeah.
that's my oat story for the year. 20 acres.
Well,
Big
if it makes you feel any better, Jared, as far as harvest has gone, it's been a struggle. Like
I bet.
our operation down in western Nebraska. I mean, they started just after the 4th of July, and they finished up I think last Friday.
It's a long.
Like a couple thousand, 2,000-3,000 acre farm.
Yeah.
It's drug out that much. They've had 7 inches of rain the last 2 weeks. Like,
Yeah.
and we just finished up harvest out west, in that Myrtle country and stuff like that on some peas and oats, and here it is, August 13th. We should have been done 25 days ago. It feels like, and so when you think you got it bad, you just hear the next story from the next farmer. Oh, I had 9 inches of rain on my swaths, and then you hear the next guy, and all the crops flooded out, or we're combining 30 bushel oats. It's been a struggle. There's definitely parts of the area parts of the South Dakota region that's dry, and you wouldn't believe it. But pastures are brown and millet's 1.5 feet tall, and they're dry. And then you get to areas up in the northeastern part of the state where, I think Allendale just had like an 8 or 9 inch rain here a couple weeks, or like last week, and that northeastern part is just like basically underwater. I mean, you're flooding I-29 and stuff. So, but would you rather have it this summer and some heat units behind it, or would you rather have it in the fall with all your fall crops?
Yeah, summer's better. Summer is better. Summer's way better. Things look green. Like I said, I was just shocked at how well the oats did given their condition and what they look like. I was writing it off and feel way better about it now.
I've actually really liked Goliath as far as yield go. Did you get a test weight on them?
36.5. So it wasn't great, but like for as lodged as they were, you know what I mean? It was good enough.
Yeah.
Wasn't crazy high, but I mean, I lost those top few oats, right? That shelled out, the big heavy ones, were starting to drop, and so I lost plenty of grain, and the heavy ones fall first, right? They have the get pulled down the most, mature the fastest. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
I think I should have skipped the fertilizer. Kind of done next time I do it, I'm going to try and do a light spread of cattle manure on it in the fall, and then plant in early spring. It's my preferred. So I'm thinking, but I know I should ask you. What would you do?
Yeah, Reed is the man on that.
Yeah.
I'd say in your operation, and you're a little bit more wetter climate, I think that's, if you're going to do a dual purpose, there's no reason to make your job harder in the fall just to try to get an extra half a ton or whatever it is. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I would say that sounds like a pretty good management plan.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know.
So,
well, awesome. Well, do you have anything else on your punch list there, Justin?
No, I this has been fun. Reed's a wealth of knowledge on all things crop related, agronomically, vast knowledge of diversity farming, we'll call it. All of the things that aren't the norm. So I think we're gonna get you back on the podcast and dive into other crops at some point. And more rattlesnakes.
Yeah, we should do like a seasonal update. On
there
how
we go.
Crop,
what's happening right now?
Like
that'd be fun.
Crop tour. Everybody talks about the Midwest crop tour, corn soybean crop tour. Nobody talks about the triticale crop tour, the mung bean crop tour. Like we could get reports way more often. I don't think anybody has any clue how the mung bean crop is doing. I haven't heard a thing.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Start it.
Thanks, Reed.
It's been fun.
No, thank you.
See you guys. All right.
Okay. See you.
Well, we hope you enjoyed another episode of the Roots and Ruminants podcast. Let us know what you thought of it. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those social media things. And, if you ever have any questions, just give us a call. We've got a toll-free number here at 888-498-7333. Be glad to hear from you. Thank you.